Hey, what's up interwebs? I'm that toy guy, and today is another installment in Then and Now. And today's character we're going to be taking a look at is Drift. Specifically the original 2010 Drift, this being the United version, and the Transformers Age of Extinction Generation Deluxe Class Drift from 2014. So here we have both drifts in their car mode. You have the 2010 Generations Drift on the left, and you have the 2014 Generations Drift on the right. Both drifts are part of the Generations line, but one part of the Generations movie line when it came out in 2014 alongside the release of Age of Extinction. The back ends of both toys are actually well painted, considering their size and their amount of joints and pieces of plastic. I'm amazed that they had enough budget to actually paint the back of the toys. Each car has its faults, but it also has its strong points. Especially the Generations figure. The Age of Extinction one is just utter crap. I really don't like that. So 2010 Generations Drift, or more specifically, this is the United version, looks really, really good. It's modeled after a Japanese-style drifter car, hence the name Drift. And it's very well painted with silver at the front, and those big red stripes, and the red on the side with the kanji. Those top hinges at the top there are painted white because they're translucent plastic for some reason, which makes no sense. And unfortunately, my figure has not stood the test of time, and his windshields are already starting to crack, which is unfortunate. He does have nice silver painted rims, and the back end is very well painted, as I mentioned before. The rear windshield is also painted in with that nice metallic blue to give it the look of the entire car having all four of its windows, which is a rarity nowadays. At the bottom you have the exhausts nicely molded in, and it looks quite nice. And here's just a quick little side view of the car. Underneath you have the sword storage, and you can pretty much make out most of the robot. But I mean, I don't display my figures upside down, so I don't really care. Now here is the dreaded Age of Extinction Drift, and I hate this toy so much. I was so wanting this toy to be better, but it's crap. It does have very nice paint though. You got some nice metallic blue running down the bottom of it there and on the front. You have some nice silver paint for the headlights, and the Bugatti logo is painted in on the front end, so it's nice. This is modeled after a Bugatti Veyron Supersport, and it pulls off that design really well. You got the big black spoiler on the back, which is kind of jarring. It just pointed out, and the back end is painted, which is quite rare for a 2014 figure, and it just looks nice in general. Oh, and the engine's not painted, which is a bit unfortunate. The bottom side of it also stores the swords, so there's that callback to the original Drift, and you can pretty much again make out all the robot. It's kind of annoying. Oh well. Now, with the Generations Drift, if you give it a good squeeze, like I'm doing here, apply as much force as you want, it will stay together. Like, see that? I mean, the back only split a tiny bit, but it stays together very well. Whereas this piece of crap right here, if you squish that, oh, there goes everything. There goes everything. That is not the most sturdy figure in the world. And look at that. I'm just, like, touching it, and it's already falling apart. The transformation on both drifts starts off with the doors opening up, which I think is pretty cool. Gives it that nice touch of realism there. Then on the Age of Extinction one, you got a whole bunch of car roof backpack, and you got to get rid of the swords. Whereas the Generations Drift, you remove the sword from the bottom, and the entire top of the car forms the legs, which is a pretty nice piece of engineering. The Age of Extinction toy's backpack really has a lot of clearance issues in the transformation, and makes it appalling to try and transform. And again, the Generations one is very nice and seamless, and the transformation flows very well. You got the arms that pull out quite nicely from the bottom. Whereas the Age of Extinction one has these weirdly ratcheted joints on it. It's kind of odd. So yeah, the Generations Drift doesn't really take that long to transform, as you see here. Although I am speeding the Generations Age of Extinction one up a bit. It has the backpack that plugs in. Doesn't plug in all the time, so you got to be very careful, even though you can't really see what I'm doing. And that's both drifts transformations. 2010 Drift looks amazing. It does a really good job at calling back to the More Than Meets the Eye and other forms of IDW comic art of Drift. He pulls off that Japanese robot aesthetic very well by separating the whole samurai look versus the standard Japanese robot look, which I think does a very good job. It's got some very nice shoulder pads, some very nice paint work. The robot mode, just all of the placement of the car parts is just done very well. And even the backside of this figure looks good. It's not kibble-tastic or anything like that. It has a very nice, clean transformation that pulls off the design very well. For weapons, he comes with one really long sword and two tiny little short swords. The two tiny little short swords are painted silver, and the katana here, I think it's a katana, has a gold jewel in the middle and some kanji written down the side. Now I will say the silver paint on the tiny swords does tend to chip off very easily. Now he does have some very nice articulation so that he can hold the sword in many different poses, and I'll show that off later on. But here he is, just standing there looking all cool, about to kill some fools. Age of Extinction Drift has some very nice sculpted work to him. I will say that. There's very nice sculpted detail. For some reason his arms are sculpted asymmetrically, don't know why. And those giant samurai panels on his arms stick out quite a lot. His head sculpt isn't the best. I mean, the new Last Night Drift looks better, but it's the exact same mold. You have the sword storage on the back, which is actually quite cool and accurate to the movie. You've got some very nice metallic blue paint that's exposed, but there's a lot of kibble on this guy, especially on the back. I mean, look at that. That does not look good from the back. You got the engine just hanging out there, the windshield hanging out there, all the shoulder pads stick out. For weapons, though, he does have some really nice and really cool gold weapons. Granted, they're gold, so be very careful. They might break. Articulation on both drifts. You have the head that can move, and on Age of Extinction Drift, the head falls off. You can rotate the arms full 360, and they can go out. Generations Drift's a little limited. The shoulder pads on Age of Extinction Drift also move out of the way, which is quite nice. The Generations Drift has an extra joint that allows his arms to move up and down. They both have bicep swivels and elbows. Generations is double jointed. And you can't see this, but Generations Drift wrists are on ball joints. And both of them don't have waist joints, which is unfortunate. You've got this side skirts on Generations Drift that move out of the way very nicely. And Age of Extinction Drift's kibble on the back of his legs can move out of the way to accommodate knee poses. So here is Age of Extinction Drift in the most basic of poses, because this is really the only pose you can kind of get this guy in, because his thigh swivels do really limit his articulation due to those plates on them. The elbows and the wrists are really horrible, and you can't really get him in some good sword-wielding poses. Whereas the Generations Drift, on the other hand, has enough articulation to dual-wield his longsword, which is really, really cool. The wrist ball joints, the double-jointed elbows, the amount of joints in his shoulders help really well with his posability. Overall, Drift is the toys are usually a mix and match. Like, you have the Generations version, which is really, really good, and then you have this thing right here, which I really don't like. If I were to tell you which version is the definitive Drift, which version of Drift to get, definitely go with this one. Obviously, this one's the Henkei version, so if you want one with better paint, then go with this one. But the Generations one, released in North America and the UK and all that, looks really good on its own still. Out of the two, this guy definitely wins in comparison to this guy. The reason why I'm so upset with this figure was because I really, really wanted this one to be good. This guy and Hound were the two figures from Age of Extinction I really wanted to be good. Hound did very well. He didn't do very well. And I'm glad I only spent like $14 on this rather than the actual $22 price that Deluxes went for back in 2014. And you know what? I'm going to try something here. Let's try something here. So that has been my look, a very smashing look at both drifts, and I'm that toy guy, and stay tuned for my next video.